is for you guys to meet each other, get to know each other, and lean on each other, and follow each other's accounts. So, you know, when you have time, when there's a few minutes to take a break, you know, try to mingle and get to know each other. So, we were lucky enough to get Jordan Harp here today. I met him at Mako, the Winter Mako, and he did a presentation there, and so I asked him if he would come and speak to us, and he was glad to do it. So we're really happy to have him. And I'm going to go ahead and read your bio, although I forgot my glasses, so if I butcher it, yeah, I'm going to apologize now. So Jordan is the political outreach manager at Facebook in DC, where he works with national politicians and elected officials to use the platform to engage their supporters and constituents. He previously led Facebook's Small Business Boost and Safety Workshop events with legislators in California. In 2012, he worked as the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee as a digital strategist, helping to run an online fundraising campaign that raised over $50 million during the 2012 cycle. He also served as an intern in the Office of New Media at the White House. Jordan received a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science at the University of California in Las Vegas. Oh, Los Angeles. Vegas would have been better, huh? That's not California. So, welcome, Jordan. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out in this dreary weather, and I'm really, really excited to be here, so I'm glad to see that we have a pretty full audience now. I think, is this one? This one on? No. Okay, I'll use this one.
Talk loud, so you join.
All right, I will talk loud so we can get the video, and hi everybody that could make it. Thank you so much for watching this video if you do, and bear with me. I'm going to do about a 25-minute presentation, and then I want to have, it seems like everyone here is pretty savvy already, like, you know, you don't really need to find out what Facebook is, so I want to get all of your questions and try to help with the advanced stuff that's been bothering you, that's been bugging you, that you really want to get answered. All right, so you all know Facebook's mission is to make the world more open and connected. We are really trying to build a platform that allows us to connect with the people and places that matter to them, and a big part of that is government as well. So I think there's a really big opportunity here on social media to not only connect with people, but also connect them with the services that are provided that they might not know about, and also just keep that conversation going so that they, you know, when there is an emergency, that you have this big audience that you can tell what's happening and what to do in this situation. So Facebook has over 180 million active users in the United States. This means that the people that you're trying to reach relatively, you know, they're going to be on Facebook. So it's really important to be thinking about this as you're partitioning your time between different platforms, that all the people that you need to reach are on Facebook, and that you can be driving a lot of activity there as well. Facebook also has now more active users on mobile than it does on desktop. This doesn't mean that people are leaving desktop. It actually just means that they are using mobile as their primary source throughout the day, and that they're using mobile combined with the activity that they're already using on desktop. So Facebook is really thinking about how we're going to be building our platform going forward in a mobile world, where mobile is so important to how people are getting their information. You know, we see there are a few other media sources that people are accessing when they're walking down the grocery aisle or at the gym, making dinner, but all three of those activities, we see that people are using Facebook on their mobile phones. So it's really a great place to be reaching them throughout the day. So really briefly, just kind of an overview of where media in the United States has been and where it's going. So you can see something really important happened in the 1950s, where television passed radio as the primary source of media that people were accessing. And this continued to climb throughout the years, but until the 1990s, television was the dominant source. In the 1990s, something started to happen, which we saw that digital media became important to people's lives. So this includes things like the internet on their desktop, digital media now on mobile phones, you know, as in 2000 and beyond. So it's really something that is taking a hold in the way people access their media. And eMarketer, the source that put this data together, found that in 2013 was the first year that digital actually surpassed television as the primary a source of media for people. So a big part of this, you can see here at the bottom, is that mobile now accounts for well over half of the media that people are consuming that as a part of digital. And digital has passed television as that primary source of media. And it also is really important to note that this doesn't mean that it's taking away necessarily from the time people spend listening to radio or watching television. It just means that people are accessing media more throughout their day, from more sources, with more opportunities to be hearing messages and public service announcements that matter to them. So among the digital media services, Facebook is the leader in mobile activity, and we see that Facebook and Instagram account for more total activity than the other services that you've seen combined. So this is something that, while it's really important to be diversifying where you're reaching people, because people are using different services, the highest proportion of them are using Facebook and Instagram. So you can see this in a breakdown on desktop. Here with Facebook is 11% of the time that people spend on their desktop. You can see some other services here that are really important to people: YouTube, Yahoo, Google, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. These are all definitely important places to be sharing your messages, but it's important to note that so much of the activity is being driven from the time that people are spending on Facebook. And people spend about 40% of their time on Facebook scrolling through their newsfeed. So you can imagine that newsfeed really is this central location that people are spending their time on the web, and it's where people are seeing information, where you can reach them on a daily basis. So this is a breakdown of that graph that I showed about mobile specifically. So you can see here that Facebook and Instagram account for 21% of the total mobile time spent. This means that people are spending a lot of time in their newsfeed on Facebook, they're spending a lot of time in their feed on Instagram, and it's a really big opportunity to be reaching them on a daily basis, wherever they are on the go. So next I'm going to talk about some of the content and best practices for Facebook pages specifically, because for most of you, that's really where the rubber hits the road, is the content that you're posting to your page. So we've seen that posts between 100 to 250 characters get about 60% more engagement than long posts on Facebook. Now, this doesn't mean that you should never post a long text post, but it just means as a general rule on a day-to-day basis, the data shows that people are really looking for succinct messages. And I put all the examples on a mobile phone to really drive home that point that, when you're scrolling through this newsfeed, you don't have time to hit the see more button and read a lot of text. You really need something that's succinct, that tells a story, and then that has some sort of driving action behind it. That's either, communicating directly with that post or driving some kind of offline action. So it's a really great example from the governor's personal or his campaign page, I believe, with the actress from Seinfeld and what's the Veep. Yeah, she's great. I actually in my this is not in my bio, but I got to help work on the House of Cards television show, that film. Really random. I was at UCLA, and there was like this. Anyways, long story short, I helped them kind of write a draft proposal for getting tax credits to come and film in Baltimore. So lots of good stuff happening with that as well. Sorry, that was a really big tangent. Okay. Okay. So next up, Facebook's a really visual platform. And we really believe that you should be posting photos and videos that are helping people see specifically what you're talking about. So photos get 180% more engagement than text posts on the site, and videos get about 120% more engagement on average than text posts on the site. Also, it's really important, like I mentioned, about people spending their time in newsfeed. It's important to think of your page as a source and not a destination, because we see that people find their information on newsfeed much more than they find it on pages. This number is really wide because it depends on the vertical and the industry, but users are 40 to 150 times more likely to see your post in newsfeed than they are on your page. So if you're expecting people to come to your page, then honestly you just need to really reevaluate that, because the vast majority of how people are seeing content on Facebook is by finding it in their newsfeed. This is also true on Instagram. I'm sure I don't have the stats on that, but basically you're really trying to be posting on a regular basis so that when people are going on their newsfeed, there's the chance that they will see your content and not somebody else's. So in order to think about that, it's good to think about having a consistent content posting schedule and developing a schedule that's really useful for the people that are going to be, developing a content schedule that is really useful for your office to kind of know what sort of tasks you need to do at 1 p.m. on X number of days. And we also have a scheduling feature, which I'll talk about in a bit, that will help you prioritize how you're going to do that. We're really excited to be rolling out really soon the new Q&A product for Pages. Particularly for public officials, this is a great way to have a direct connection with constituencies. So basically from this product, you would upload a photo that shows that the principal is sitting behind a computer and ask them for questions about whatever topic it is. Oftentimes we see a lot of earned media coming out of these. We see that people are taking that content and repurposing it as a photo album with the question and the answer, and some kind of stat about that particular topic. There's really a lot of great content potential there when you create this Q&A to see what people are interested in talking about, and then also to address it right there. So this is really great, especially when you're rolling out some kind of new policy initiative, to have a Q&A with a principal in your office so that people can get the direct answers to the questions that they have. So I talked a bit about Instagram, but this is really driving this point home that we have over 150 million active users on Instagram, and it's growing. And Instagram is a great place to be posting directly from your mobile phone, candid photos and videos of the things that are happening in your community, and giving people a chance to see what's going on. Really, you don't have to have that professional photographer to take great photos on Instagram because it's supposed to be this candid mobile photo. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be something that's really just happening on a daily basis. You're out at an event and you take a picture with your phone. It's supposed to feel authentic and it's supposed to feel personal. So there's really great potential there on Instagram. It's also good to be topical. So we did a study, and posts that mentioned the 4th of July or mentioned Independence Day on the 4th of July got roughly 90% more engagement than posts that, the average post on that day that didn't mention the 4th of July. So whatever it is happening in your community, whether Navy's got a big game, whether there's a holiday is coming up, if there's a way to tie in your message somehow that kind of touches on that in a way that's within the social media policy of your office, it's a really great way to get a lot more engagement and really be talking about what people are talking about in your community. Also, something that's really important to note that's a relatively new change to Newsfeed and how we're ranking content is that it used to be that a lot of the way that we knew what content to show to more people was from Facebook actions, such as comments, likes, shares, and those still are a big part of how we rank content. But because people are using Facebook to drive referral traffic as well, we've added the clicks on links as something that is showing us that this is useful and interesting content. So if you're sharing a link onto your Facebook page, there are a lot of ways to optimize how that link looks in the metadata on your website, so that when you're sharing this link, there's a really big, beautiful picture on there, there's a great title, and it's really optimizing for something that people want to click. So it's really about, would you click on this? I mean, is this something that is interesting to you? And if there is something that you see there that maybe there isn't a great photo, maybe there isn't, the title is just the URL or something, you should change that before you post it so that it looks really great on mobile and on desktop. So So you can see a great example here. NPR shared a link, and it has a really great image that almost looks like a photo that was shared on Facebook, but any part of this image that you click would go to that link. So it's a really great way to be driving referral traffic to your websites when you have a public service announcement, when you have a new policy initiative. It's a great way to be thinking about rolling those out. And this stat was from a study that we did on, particularly on media companies, that when they were posting more frequently during the day, that they were seeing an increase in referral traffic. So the amount of posts didn't actually drive down the distribution, it increased it. So a little bit more about newsfeed and how we rank content. It's really important to think about the fact that everybody, particularly in a market like the United States, where people are really connected and they have lots of friends and they've been using Facebook for a long time, the average person's newsfeed is a relevant selection of over 1,500 potential posts on any given day. So you can imagine trying to sit and read through 1,500 posts. It just wouldn't be practical or useful for a person. So what we've done is we've taken the content that we think is relevant using our algorithm to show that to people based on the actions they've taken in the past and what kind of content they seem to like to engage with. So you can see here on the left are all the different pages and all the different profiles. And on the right is the newsfeed, which has a more limited inventory of content that can show up. So this content is selected based on a number of factors, including how recent the post is. So something from last week is unlikely to be showing this week. Also, the affinity that people have. So if someone has liked your page and has been commenting and sharing your content, then they're more likely to see that content in the future. And the virality of the post. So a post that gets a lot of comments in the first hour will be shown to more people. Basically, it's that kind of showing that intent of the audience that they want to see more of it, and telling us that it's a really interesting post that should be shown to more people. So in order to optimize for being seen in newsfeed, it's really important to have a consistent posting so that you have something on every, at least once a day or once every weekday. And then also having really relevant and interesting content that people want to engage with. So getting those clicks, getting those comments, shares, and likes will help build your audience in the current and also in the future. So more people will see the posts on the day, and also more people will have that strong affinity with your page to keep seeing your posts every single day. I'm going to touch briefly on ads because there were some questions, but I'm happy to go into any particular questions after the presentation. So with Facebook, we are really happy to be able to provide very targeted advertising to audiences. So I'm not sure which agencies are able to have a paid media budget, but if you have public service announcements, if you have something that's a new policy initiative and there's budget there, you're able to target particularly outside of the people who are already fans of your page, the people in your constituency who you want to reach. So whether it's people who are only reaching people who are legally of age to vote in Maryland over 18 because it's only useful to adults, only reaching people who are Medicaid age or Medicare age, who are over a certain age, basically having targeted results that will reach the people that you don't already have connected to your page, but who are targets for the kind of policy messages that you have. So this is based on a Nielsen OCR that found that the average online reach for narrowly targeted campaigns on digital platforms is 38% accurate, and that because of all the demographic details that people fill in on their Facebook profiles, we're able to achieve an 89% accuracy on the targeted reach for narrowly targeted campaigns. And for broad targeting, this is 78% accurate for the average online reach and 92% accurate for Facebook reach for broadly targeted campaigns. So this is particularly important, I think, to government entities. If you do have a paid media budget, it's really important because it's taxpayer money that you're only reaching people who are, taxpayers in the state of Maryland, which is where Facebook really is a great tool because we can help you reach particularly the people that you're trying to reach and nobody else. So I'm going to talk briefly about a couple of case studies. So a couple of success stories here. There's two different kinds of campaigns I'm going to talk about. The first one is a direct response campaign, and the second one is a brand awareness campaign. So the Navy Federal Credit Union was trying to get conversions to their website, and they were able to see a 25 times higher conversion rate from Facebook to their corporate website than what they had before using Facebook. They had 60,000 new member acquisitions and a 5 times increase in their fan count on Facebook. And let's see, Jennifer Sadler, who's a manager of social media for them, said that the campaign resulted in record-breaking numbers for them. New members, refinance loans, and new certificates, and that they're planning to use Facebook in the future. So really, this is, when you're thinking about this is if you have something on your website that you're trying to drive people to sign up, you're trying to drive people to take some sort of action off-site. Facebook is a great way to target people and tell them about this and then have them click to convert to whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish off of Facebook. The second is building brand awareness. So the AARP found that 14% of 45 to 64-year-old Americans saw AARP ads in their, 14% saw AARP ads in their news feeds by doing basically research off of Facebook by doing polls and audience research essentially. They also saw a 29% increase in the desire to learn more about their brand, and they found a 24 times increase in willingness to recommend AARP to a friend. So a lot of what they were doing was driving Facebook actions and building brand awareness on their Facebook page by showing people content that was relevant to them, by getting them to engage with the page, and by expanding the reach of their campaign to people who hadn't liked the AARP page, but were possibly interested in their message because they were a targeted audience in that senior range. So Tammy Gordon, the VP of Social Comms there, had said, Facebook allows us to deliver relevant and empowering messages directly to our core demographic, right where they are. So this is a really great, as far as when you're trying to reach people and you have a specific message, Facebook can help you reach just the people that you want to reach. So next I'm going to talk about a free tool that's really important for all people who are managing Facebook pages, and that is our Insights tool, which helps you see a lot of the data about your Facebook page and get some tips for the future. So when you're going through all these best practices that I'm talking about today and kind of going with the general assumptions that you have for your page, it's all well and good, but it's also really good to base everything that you're doing in some kind of quantitative understanding of what's actually happening on your page. And so with Insights, we give you tools to see all of the things that are happening on your page and numbers related to how many people you're reaching, how many people you're engaging, who the core demographics are, and it's really important to be either doing some sort of weekly roundup to see how well you did this week compared to last week, or even going further and actually pulling the data directly from Facebook in a CSV and creating a report to share with your office. Or it's a great way, honestly. I think a lot of social media professionals that I've met in politics and government are oftentimes really well versed in this stuff and they get it, but their management might not understand really the value that these sites are driving to their brand and to their website. So doing some sort of weekly insights report, doing some kind of actual quantitative breakdown of this is a great way to show the value beyond just engagement, beyond just the kind of things that you see on a daily basis managing your page. So you're able to see things like how large your community has grown over time. It's kind of the basic one. You can know how many people you're reaching and engaging each week, so you can see the trend over time. If one week was particularly engaging, you can see what you did differently versus other weeks. You can see who it is that's engaging with your page based on their demographics, whether it's gender, age, location, language. You can know what time of day you should post. And this is a really cool option in the new Insights tool, which is that we used to get a lot of questions specifically about what time of day is the best time of day to post on Facebook. And honestly, the answer is that it's different for every single page. A restaurant that sells brunch is going to be a lot more engaged on a Saturday and a Sunday than the IRS, who's probably not going to get a whole lot. It's sort of whatever it is. If it's something that's open on weekdays, they're not going to get a lot of engagement on the weekends. If something that's open on weekends, it's not going to get as much on the weekdays. So really, you want to see this for your page individually. What time of day people are accessing Facebook. So you'll see of the fans on this page in particular, at the peak time of the day at 6 p.m., I think this page has 248,000 fans. It's our Facebook Politics and Government page. And there are 101,000 people who are fans of the page who are logged on to Facebook at 6 p.m., and that's the peak time of the day for this page. So you can see that it would be a really bad idea to post at 3 a.m. Right here at this dip. And it might be a good idea to post sometime around 4 p.m. so that you'll get these 2 or 3 hours of the peak prime time of the day when people are most engaged on the site. So this is going to be different for everyone in here's page probably, although relatively the same. The 3 a.m. rule will probably be the same for everybody. But it's important to think about. And then also, I don't actually have a slide of the scheduling tool, but right on the publisher on the page, you're able to schedule posts by picking the date, the time, whether it's in the future. And this is a really great tool if, for instance, your prime time of the day is 7 p.m. And you don't want to have to be at work past the time that you would usually leave, and you don't want to have to be there to post on your Facebook page. You can schedule a post to post at 7 p.m. and still get that prime time of the day without having to actually physically be there. And then you can also learn a lot about what sort of posts do well on your page by category. You can see on this page that photos get roughly 2 times the reach of links and videos, but they also get roughly, well, I can't even, that's probably 10 to 15 times the engagement of this is engagement, this is reach, and this purple one, or the pink one at the bottom is likes, comments, and shares, and the top one is post clicks. So you can see that that's how many times people have clicked on the photo. And so that one is getting a lot more engagement than links and videos. You can also see a breakdown of each individual post. This is a great way to kind of see why one particular post went viral and know when it happened, and you can see it very clearly in data. In this case, one of these, it's hard to read from far away, but this says reach for this column. These are each individual posts. The one here at the bottom, you can see this yellow bar has about 10 times more reach than the one at the top. And so I could click on that post and see specifically the breakdown of all the different numbers on that post. So this post was about the Supreme Court Defense of Marriage Act decision and how people were talking about it on Facebook. So it reached 13,000 people. It had 91 likes, comments, and shares, and had about 52 link clicks. You can also see some of the negative feedback. So you can see that 4 people unliked this page as a result of this post. That you can see that 7 people hit this post in particular. And so you can see if there's something that really isn't resonating, what you can do basically to fix that. So I always kind of finish with this creed that we have at Facebook, and we have a lot of these hanging around our walls, but I like this one in particular. It's really on a daily basis, we're really trying to build a platform that changes the way that people communicate with each other. And in order to do that, you have to think kind of outside the box and really do essentially what you would do if you weren't afraid. So I really think with government and with political figures, there's a great potential here if you're opening a dialogue with constituents that really has never been opened before. And there's a lot of hesitancy, institutional hesitancy, because of the potential for negative feedback, potential for things to not go right. And I really want everybody here who's probably already pretty well sold on social media to think about how they can really be paving these frontiers in the new year and convincing people who haven't really understood it yet what that value is as well. So if that's management, if that's really showing people value from social media, I really think it's important that we are doing what we would do if we weren't afraid, because in order to change this paradigm, we pretty much have to do that. So thank you very much, and I'm going to take questions now, and thanks for having me.
I'll start.
Sure.
And don't be shy, you guys, ask questions. I know a lot of us would love to use advertising, but our budgets obviously aren't there and don't allow it. So with the hope that we can go there in the future, we saw from your slide the effectiveness of it, but how about the cost comparison?
Right. So as far as the cost comparison, I wouldn't speak, well, it depends, because basically you're bidding on inventory of a particular audience. So not all ads are created equal, just like an ad in Vogue is more expensive than an ad in some other magazine, but which is really the demographic, not the platform. But I think the cost is really effective for reaching people in particular. I don't have a lineup of like Google, Twitter, Facebook to be bragging about right now, but just from my own experience before coming to Facebook, we were trying to build a list of Democratic donors, and we were doing a lot of that through advertising online, because the acquisition, we kind of knew the audience profile that we were looking for, but we didn't have necessarily didn't know who they were. So we were trying to find them through targeting, particularly on digital platforms, and Facebook was the most cost-effective option for us. We built our list about 50% over the course of the year by running a lot of advertisements and also doing a lot of list acquisition just from organic posts. We post petitions about whatever the political issue of the day, and having people sign up through their petitions. So Facebook was the most cost effective for us, but I don't have, unfortunately, a breakdown. I can follow up with that.
Do you have any? I can speak up. Thank you. Do you have any suggestions as for best practices as far as engagement, and particularly when it comes to creating engagement on a government Facebook page where there's some sensitivities and sort of a delicate line that's involved?
Sure. Yeah, so I think one of the challenges that are faced in government, and I can kind of speak to this back when, so I was just an intern, but our Office of New Media Director at the White House used to have this phrase that was talking specifically about content that was more frivolous and fun as being peanut butter for the pill. Sort of, that we were trying, basically you could talk about policy issues all day and you wouldn't get as much engagement, and you post one picture of the dog and, through the roof. So it's about balancing, I think, the way that you're talking to people, but I think, a big part of it is that people respond to content that is how they talk in their daily lives. So even the most bureaucratic policy thing, there has to be a way to package it on Facebook in a way that is conversational, is sort of that dinner table talk. A really great example of kind of like the rubber hits the road government practice. The city of Boston won an award for Best Digital City last year, and I went and met with some of their folks, and they showed me some of the stuff they were working on. and they had a campaign that they drove mostly through social media, which was the hashtag Spot Holes campaign. So it's like spotting potholes. And basically what they're trying to get citizens to do was to report where potholes were on Facebook and on Twitter using that hashtag. And then they would literally take that address, or whatever it was, put it into some kind of Excel document, and they would have their team go and fill these potholes. And they were able to, through this campaign, increase, I think what was it? It was really impressive, but they increased the percentage of self-reported potholes to like 200% from the previous year. So I think a lot of it is like, some of this stuff is a boring topic, but you have to be creative in the way that you tell it, and then it's really interesting. They had, combined with that campaign, they had a video that they put together that was relatively low production. I mean, video I know is a big lift for a lot of offices, so I'm not saying that everyone can pull this off, but the video was really charming. It was about this guy who had been working filling potholes for like 40 years in Boston, and how he was like this pothole avenger, essentially, and it really was, I mean, it had this creative kind of fun feel about a topic that's relatively boring, but it made it fun, and it got shared a ton, and I think really it's about finding that connection between the peanut butter or the pill, the fun stuff, talking about policy. The best way to do that, I guess, is a number of things, but having conversational tone in the text that you write, and having visual content that people want to share. Asking yourself if you would share a photo, or not, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, follow up.
Well, yeah, what about, you create a voice on a page and, it becomes familiar, but then it's a fan, and you've got this pleasant voice that you've been working with,
It's a great
How do
point.
you, is there, I mean, I don't know. If you have any-
Yeah, so the question is, if you have a really pleasant voice that you've been developing on the page, how do you change if there's some kind of crisis, if some kind of emergency, to make sure that you're really addressing it the way that is the right way. I think it's okay. I think you don't have to add emoticons and hashtags to like something that's really terrible that's happening. People get it for sure when especially when it's, the main kind of emergencies that you deal with, people want the most relevant and like simple information anyways, or they're looking for, I guess, you're probably talking about two different kinds of, could be one crisis or the other. It could be one where it's like a weather event, which is not your fault, or it could be one where it is your fault because your agency screwed up, and that's a bit more of a tricky line to toe. But I think that people are looking for transparency on Facebook. So it's really about having that kind of ability to toe that line between what you can tell as public information and how to tell it in a way that's useful for people. So it's okay, I think, to be serious when it's serious.
And Jordan, I see that as, there's almost a comparison to being a parent. They're just different voices that you use under different circumstances, and people, react to that. They don't expect you to be fun in a hurricane. They react to the circumstances pretty well, I think.
Right.
I actually had a different question, and it has to go back with the advertising. So what is the difference between, you have the advertising, and then you have the paid boosts?
Sure.
Can you go into more detail on the differences between the two?
Definitely. So the question is, what's the difference between advertising and paid boosts on the page? So really the paid boosts on the page are a lighter, easier to access version of advertising. You're still targeting a demographic. You're still putting budget behind a certain post. But the big difference is that when you create an advertisement on the Ads Create tool, is what we call it, you have a lot more ability to create something that's very specific to the audience that you want. So I'll give you an example. The boost on the page, so this is an ad that you can run directly from the page versus an ad that you create tool. The boost on the page has, I believe, either you can advertise to people who are connected to your fans or to demographic profile that's very basic, which is location, gender, age, and language. And those are really useful to narrow down when you're just trying to reach a bunch of people. And it's definitely, I would say it's a product that is for advertising beginners. But on the Ads Create tool, you could get as specific as interests. So if people have listed interests such as home improvement, then a company that sells a home improvement product would probably be better off targeting those people than just the broad demographic targeting. So you could really get very particular on location and, for instance, we have on the thing that exists on the Ads Create tool and in Power Editor that doesn't exist on the page is what we call lookalike audiences. So if you have an email list, that you can upload it to the Power Editor and you can either advertise against the people who are on that list that are matched to Facebook profiles, or you can basically exclude them from your advertisement and have a lookalike audience, which is advertising to people who are fit that similar demographic profile of the people who are already on your email list. So really, the Ads Create tool is just going to have much more depth to what you can do. The Power Editor in particular is really the Ferrari of Facebook advertising. But as far as we see a lot of brands will do things like A/B tests on their advertisements to see what's working best, where you're basically putting budget behind two identical but with one thing changed, such as a demographic or a photo post, and putting the same amount of budget behind them and seeing which one performs the best before you go and expand that budget to see, to a broader audience, which really helps you optimize what you're spending your money on, because if you're knowing for sure that the ad that you're posting is the one that would get the best engagement for the cheapest price before you put all this budget behind your campaign, you're going to get a better result. But does that kind of answer it, or do you have any follow-up? Because that's a lot to unpack there. But.
No.
Okay. Yes.
I've been trying to figure out, I feel like this is like a Facebook 101 question, and it's two questions. I'm with the Department of Natural Resources, and I've been trying to figure out how to, engage with our audience. Our audience is very broad. DNR has a police department, we have biologists, scientists, and our audience are those people, as well as people who are like recreational type, hunting, fishing, boating.
Right.
So it's a broad audience that I'm trying to engage.
Right.
I feel like I've been most challenged on Facebook, just looking at likes or shares or comments. Well, I might put up something that our state parks, who's a part of us, will put up. They'll get 100 likes and 50 comments, and I'll get 10.
Right.
So I have one question. I might have misunderstood what you said. If you post from the newsfeed page, are you saying you're getting a broader audience than going onto your actual page and posting that same information?
Right, that's a good question. So the question, or the answer would be no, because
It doesn't matter.
basically you can only post from your page.
Okay.
If you post on the top of your newsfeed, it'll go to your personal account.
Okay.
But the post that goes, when you post something to your page, from your page, it will be shared to newsfeed, and it will also exist in chronological order on your page for people to see as well. And people do go to pages. I think sometimes a lot of people kind of think, well, I've posted a bunch of stuff, it's there, if people want to see it, they can do social media with me, and that doesn't work. You have to be consistently posting for people to continue to see what you're posting. So posting from the page will show up in newsfeed. As far as the question of broad targets and a diverse audience is definitely, I'd say, a good problem to have if you're a creative person, because you can think of a lot of different kinds of content that might be useful for them. The hard thing is sort of segmenting it to which particular audience and seeing when they're online, because there really isn't a way to parse that out in the data. But just going off of general age demographics and what people are maybe, I guess, looking at the kind of comments that you get and what people are looking for and what they're wanting to be created and what their questions are about. Is probably the best way to kind of see what kind of content you should be posting to them.
Well, I've kind of narrowed it down that if we talk about any type of police activity or fire activity or
Right.
put like a pretty picture up,
Yeah.
I mean, environment type,
Right.
that seems to generate the most, I guess, engagement.
Right.
But we're more than that.
Of course. Yeah.
And my second question also, it's like Facebook 101, but I work in the communications office. We put out a lot of news. So I'll take the link for our news, I'll put it in the, on the status,
Right.
and it pulls the photo. And then I'll put something in the messaging. I try to be creative because obviously it puts the headline,
Right.
but it puts the picture kind of to the side.
Right.
Do you recommend putting the picture up so it fills that whole area?
Right. So there's actually and I have to we have this on our help section, where when we rolled out these changes to newsfeed that were featuring links in a more visual way, there are specific recommendations for how you should be uploading the image on the back end of your website so that it shows up when you post in this way. So I believe that, so for instance, there's certain dimensions, like even though so on your website, you might have, the HTML would be something like 500 by 400. The image itself has to have the dimensions of at least like 800 by 600 or something to show up. I don't remember the specifics, but basically to show up as that big image on Facebook. So there are certain things that you have to make sure that you do on your website when you are uploading the image, that it fits these kind of categories. And then there are ways to optimize the meta tags as well, so that you're making sure that the headline auto-generates when you post it to Facebook. That you want to make sure that it's just a brilliant link because one thing that I found is that it's really, we've built tools so that you could change the headline from when you upload it on Facebook, you could change it yourself. But then the second generation, if somebody else shares that link, it still has the same metadata from your website, and so it will just do the headline that that was there on the website. So it's really important to be doing that at the source and not just on Facebook when you upload something. That helps.
And the answer to your first question is steal the parks material. Who else? Anybody over here? You want to come in, Anthony?
A question about cover photos. Since they're not clickable, do you have any do's and don'ts as far as the elements that are part of that cover photo that will help us as far as messaging? We have a specific thing we're trying to convey to people. What do you recommend we do as far as that's concerned?
Right.
And also, why aren't they clickable?
So they should be clickable. You should be able
No,
to.
you can't embed a link. Why can't we embed links?
Oh, that's for a very specific reason, which is so that you can't embed a link. I mean, we really don't want them to be a marketing space. We want them to be a creative space. So a lot of the rules around cover photos are encouraging people to have something that is interesting, engaging to the audience, but isn't just a marketing billboard, essentially. So there are rules about how much text you can have in there and what sort of text that it can say if it's trying to drive some kind of off-on action that would break the policy for cover photos. And they don't hyperlink for that specific reason because we want them to just be basically a creative space on your page. A cover photo, I think, the profile photo will follow all content that you post all over the site. The cover photo, because it exists on the page, probably isn't as important to the day-to-day because, like I said, most content that people see, they're going to see it in newsfeed anyways, so they're probably not going to see the cover photo as often as they're going to see the profile photo, which is in newsfeed every day. So I really think cover photo is kind of like I would say a seasonal change. If you have, it's kind of an aesthetic, you get bored of it and you have something new to put up there, great. But I would put a lot more of your focus on creating content that is engaging in the newsfeed, because that's where people are really going to be interacting with you.
Jordan, if there's a time limit, let me know.
There's not,
Casey,
so
if
go for
there's
it.
a time limit for the next speaker, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, we have an hour built in for lunch, so
Cool.
that's all it's about.
You guys aren't hungry, are you? There is a cafe here, just to let you know, so you don't have to leave the building if you don't want to. Who's next?
I have a couple of them.
Sure.
And first one is probably a dumb one, but so what is the difference between total reach and when I post something, if I see that these X number of people saw the post? Is it people are actually clicking on the post, or is it just showing up on their news feed?
That's a great question. So the difference is the people who have engaged with the post is the total engagement. Total reach is how many people that basically we track when somebody scrolls past your post in their newsfeed, whether or not they read it specifically, they've been reached. So 13,000 people on that example saw that post in their newsfeed on that particular.
So not necessarily they've clicked on the post.
Right. So that's just the impressions essentially. So how many people are seeing the content that you're posting?
So engagement would be clicking and sharing or liking everything else?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the amount of engagement that you get will increase the amount of reach. The amount of reach that you get probably won't
Right.
increase the amount of engagement. Although, well, yeah, it will, because when you engage, and someone engages much, then we show it to more people, and that amount of reach creates more engagement, and it's sort of that the cycle goes on until the post is too old to be relevant anymore.
Thank you. And the other one is, so we are an emergency services department. We also have a 911 center at our office. So we are right now not encouraging two-way communication because of
Right.
we do not have staff to maintain the page 24/7. So we have had our settings so that the comments are hidden. Nobody else can see but the admins of the page.
Right.
But I had a discussion with our emergency manager, and he was concerned that we may miss, during emergencies, if people have questions, they would, post questions, but we don't have any other way to get back to them. We have also blocked personal messages. So what would be a good way to address this problem? Should we unblock personal messaging in that period, or if
Right.
anything?
Yeah, so a couple things there. I'm guessing because you said that comments are hidden, but I don't think you can turn comments off or hide them.
So we've
It probably kind of,
We've added words
right.
we could think of.
Okay, got it. Okay, so there's the ability to stop people from posting on the page. There's also ability to review posts that are on your page and then click allow for certain ones to show up and hide other ones to show up. And then there's the ability to just let Wild West happen, let everybody post on the page. But posts on your page are different than comments. So because Facebook is built to have this kind of ability for people to engage with the content
Yes.
that they're connected to, you can't turn off comments specifically. So
Right.
what you're talking about, I think, is that you've hidden words.
Yes.
So basically in the settings page, you can add words that are blocked in comments. So only people who are the person who commented it and their friends will be able to see, for instance, curse words that people would write. I'm not going to give legal advice because I don't know what the kind of legality of what you're dealing with. But I would say from an engagement perspective, it's probably not a good idea to not to have a really restrictive hidden words on comments, because if someone has no ill intent and they're just commenting something, then they might feel a little bit, if they get like a flag that says like my comment is hidden to, like it broke some kind of rules of the page, or if someone comments back, then that might be kind of a bad experience for them. I would recommend having a really clear disclaimer right at the top of the about section.
We do have that.
Yeah, that would just say, if you have a real emergency, call 911.
Yeah.
As far as daily managing on the page, if you're opening up for comments and messages, that's really, it's a better question of your office. But I would encourage just having, PSA content about ways that people can stay safe, and then, routinely kind of reminding them of what they can do in case of an emergency, so that it's kind of on the top, of their mind, that they know that they won't get any response if they just comment on a post, that kind of thing.
And if we wanted to have open communication during emergencies or for certain like Q&A session that you mentioned, certain hours in a like monthly basis, do you think it would be a good idea, or it would create more confusion to people that whether am I supposed to?
Right. I think it would be great to have a Q&A with somebody when not during an emergency situation, just to have the kind of so that people know who's working behind the page, who's
Right.
working in the organization, and have their questions answered. But I wouldn't recommend having it be part of your emergency response necessarily. But yeah, I think that would be great.
Thank you. And one more, I'm sorry. So right now in our page inside, we do not have teen population. We know that they are, engaged otherwise, but not for emergency
Got it.
preparedness or so. So do you have any suggestions for that?
That's a good question. I mean, it's hard to know other than posting content that you think would be interesting to them. Beyond that, it would probably have to be some kind of paid media option where you're targeting the type of people that you don't have, because it's sort of again a reciprocal thing that if someone is 45 and they like your content and they're sharing it, then their friends are more likely to be other people who are their age. So yeah, that's, I guess, the content being relevant to them is really the only.
Thank you so much.
She's so pleasant, you can't take the mic away.
Great questions.
Hey, Jordan, thank you for doing this. Question about the scheduled posts. How far into the future can you reach, and can you schedule recurring posts
Right.
going into the future as well?
Yeah, great question. So I don't think that there's a pretty wide limit on how far in the future. I think it's multiple years. So probably would never actually do that, but you could theoretically post something at least another year in advance. As far as scheduling recurring posts, there isn't a way to do that because we wanted to make it so that you had to actually think about each one and go and do them. And basically because, posts on Facebook that are the exact same post, for instance, if you posted something at 9 a.m. and then again at 12, it would be suppressed. The second one in particular would be suppressed in newsfeed because it just wouldn't be relevant or interesting. So I think the main thing is finding kind of a new spin to it, and you could theoretically post the same thing every week, but I think you would see over time that people just weren't very happy with that.
Kind of what I was trying to get at with it.
Yeah.
What I was trying to get at with it is, like for emergency services, our close ties with, like with the fire services community, if we want to post every quarter, change the batteries in your smoke alarms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It'll be a burden off of us with stuff like that, but we also certainly want to get in the habit of 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 1 p.m. scheduling. Hey, it's raining outside.
Right.
You see it once.
That's a really great example. We had batteries out over Christmas when my carbon monoxide alarm was going off, and I looked at the user manual and it said 4 beeps is carbon monoxide, but so we called the fire truck at like 4 a.m. and it was a whole thing. But that was literally like a day before Christmas. So yeah, I just gone through that with, and it's really important to change the battery. So that's a great example, and I hadn't thought of that one. I think, if it's not too much hassle, it's just got to be, you could schedule those for the next year, and it could be the same post. I think that's fine. It's really just about like not having that same post every week, because that would start to get, I don't know, to people. Yeah.
I've seen more advertising on Facebook now, and are you guys concerned at all, or do you have limits put in place where you actually are not filling people's newsfeed with unsolicited ads?
Right. Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's definitely a balance that we are always striving to find between to give people relevant, interesting advertising while also not bombarding them with stuff that they're, that's not targeted well, that's not interesting. So I think I was talking with someone on sales the other day, and he was saying that, and this isn't like a, it's probably kind of changes and is variable for each user, but each user sees about 15 newsfeed ads a week, which is actually relatively small compared to like if you're watching television for half an hour. So I think we are very, we take it seriously that we want to have the user experience stay the kind of the most important aspect, but we also are having more advertisers getting directly to their their targeted audience. So it's definitely a balance we try to reach. Hopefully that's kind of answers it, or more or less.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I figure you guys do, it's all targeted marketing anyway, so you're
Right.
trying to reach a very narrow area, but it just seems like I've seen it in my own
More and more.
newsfeed, I see more and more. I didn't know,
Yeah.
eventually, or you could come to a point where people say, hey, I'll just see that.
Right. Well, I think that's a big part of a lot of the kind of products that Facebook's building for people to use on their personal account are encouraging more ways to be engaging with their friends in different ways. A lot of the different kinds of, I think, like for an example, I think the video auto-playing and newsfeed from your friends and stuff is really, it's actually been really cool to me. I thought it kind of, it's kind of neat when you're scrolling down and you see like a 15-second, snowball fight, and it's just playing as you scroll past. And then things like the feeling and reading and watching, giving people actions, so that the majority of the content people are posting is that personal friend connections, and then it's mixed in with the relevant stuff that people are connected to. So the pages that they like, the movies, the celebrities, the government agencies and politicians, and really finding a balance so that it is mostly friends with also stuff that you care about.
Hi, I just wanted to follow up. Well, actually, I have two questions. I wanted to follow up on the scheduling questions, because usually I schedule my post using another app. I haven't used actually Facebook to schedule.
Yeah.
But once you schedule, can you change it? You can see it and change it, because I paid a change the battery and smoke detector message to come up in the middle of a hurricane when I'm sending out other messages.
Absolutely, that's a really great question. So this is something that that I usually say when I talk about scheduling, because it's a great point. If there, for instance, you have a happy birthday message during a crisis, that's not a good idea. So basically, when you are at the top of your page as the admin of the page, only the admin can see something called the activity log, or the activity log. And it's right where you would go to click to like the page if you weren't already a fan. And so you click on that activity log. At the top of the page, it will show you the scheduled content in the future, and then as you go down, it'll show you all the chronological actions that you've taken in the past. So basically, you can't edit the post, because we want, again, with I think it's just that we want every time that you schedule something or post something to be original, you'd have to delete that post and then reschedule a similar post.
We want that feature.
Oh, that's on every single page. Yeah, that's.
No, I mean, we want to be able to edit the.
Yeah.
So just to make a point, that would be really nice.
Okay, good to know.
My other question I actually can ask you offline, but in general, when I post links to Facebook that goes to our website, particularly if it's a flyer or if it's another content that's on a third-party site,
Right.
it won't let me link to it from Facebook. It tells me that it's a legal link or it's spam or something. I can't change it, and I've reported it several times, said, no, this is actually our website. Can you let me post my flyer?
Okay.
So I'm not sure what else to do at this point in terms of getting my third-party content.
Got it. Yeah, let's talk offline, because that sounds like some kind of bug or something. Yeah.
Okay, I can say one more thing. I said this to you privately at Mako, but I'm going to say it out loud just to make it a little more, desperate. When Casey and I were doing Hurricane Sandy, Twitter gave us $2,500 of free advertising for an emergency, and we think Facebook should do the same. No comment.
Right. yeah, I mean, I think, we're really focused on building out all kinds of options for disaster awareness and preparation, and I'll let you know when anything changes.
That's all I can ask. The second thing is, a lot of you guys are going to hear, in the coming year from me, the use of social media for internal communications. Instead of, we've done really well, establishing content, different programs for external communication. We've come really far, I think, since I've been involved with the state in getting leadership buy-in. A lot more, they're coming around. The dinosaurs are moving towards our century, which is nice. So I really want to start to, encourage internal communication using social media. So can you just do
Sure.
finish up with a quick?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that at Facebook we use a lot for our internal communications is the groups product, which, obviously I haven't implemented it myself in government agencies, so I'm not sure what you do, or I can't point to examples, but it's really useful for us, and we have all the groups that you're in the Facebook internal groups are because you're in the Facebook network with your email address, and so basically unless you're in that network, in fact, I've left Facebook before, and I could no longer see anything that I've done in those groups because it's Facebook only essentially. But we're looking at ways to take that groups product and roll it out to enterprise clients. So we have, I think, a first set right now of some companies that are kind of forward thinking on this stuff that, frankly, a lot of former Facebook people now work at, like Pinterest, that use this as kind of our first trial run. But having it closed, like a secret group that you can only see content in if you're invited by an admin, is a great way to kind of communicate something. So you can imagine a newsfeed essentially that is only people who are in this group, and I get a notification on my Facebook profile every time there is a new post in an internal group that I'm a part of. And it's a great way to have a kind of light version of email when we have this kind of cross-collaboration. Somebody has shared a link about said topic, and this person comment, they're like, who can we get that will help this? And someone tags so-and-so, and then they're like, oh, I've got the answer, here's the statement we put out, and copy and paste, and boom, It's a great way to kind of quickly source information. And I think that would be something to look out for. Sure, I had something else, but that's all I got for you right now.
All right, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you all for coming out in this dreary weather.